y'all, it's Ashley Bookish and I am back with another video. So today I'm here to talk about what has become kind of a hot button topic in the bookish community. Maybe not necessarily on BookTube, but just in the bookish community overall, and really has made some interesting things happen in the United States. So you pretty much know what I'm talking about. If you've looked at the title, you've seen the thumbnail. We are here to talk about what has happened with Dr. Seuss. Now, it's taken me a little while to actually film, sit down, and kind of gather my thoughts about this because it's been a lot of conversations, especially amongst those of us who work in libraries. There is a lot of conversation surrounding it. We don't all agree on what has happened, and I'm gonna give my perspective and how I feel about it. Keep in mind, I cannot speak for all librarians. I do not ever claim to speak for all librarians, but this is just kind of my view and perspective. I also have a child. I had a child that was in school during Dr. Seuss week. They celebrated Dr. Seuss week, and of course for me as a parent of a child, it can be kind of awkward if you know the history that Dr. Seuss has had with some of his publications. So we're going to just talk about what has recently happened. I'm not going to get into some other stuff because I think that this is the highlight, and I want to talk a little bit about some conversations that are happening. So I did title this video "Canceling Dr. Seuss" because that seems to be the narrative of what a lot of people are discussing. The left is just attempting to censor and cancel Dr. Seuss, and it's a whole bunch of crock, to be quite honest, and that's my perspective and view about that. I think you have to be very, very mindful when you're talking about censorship and cancel culture, especially thinking about the context in which these things have happened. So if you do not know, I don't think many people in the community have really talked about it. I know that Jess did talk about it. Jess Owens did talk about it in her video where she does her community videos. She talked about it a little bit, and I am going to go a little bit further into what it's going to look like from a librarian's perspective. But if you didn't know, what ended up happening was that Dr. Seuss's estate decided that they were no longer going to publish 6 of his books. And those 6 books include And to Think I Saw It on Mulberry Street, McElligot's Pool, If I Ran the Zoo, Scrambled Eggs Super, On Beyond Zebra, and The Cat's Quizzler. I've only read one of these books, and it was And to Think I Saw That on Mulberry Street. That title was just super confusing in general, so I probably got it wrong, but you know what book I'm talking about. So I've only read that one. I haven't read the other 5, and these are books that the estate said that they were no longer publishing because of the fact that they had some very harmful images, portrayals of other races and ethnicities. Now, people are up in arms about the situation, and I find it very funny because half of the people who are up in arms about these books have not read a Dr. Seuss book in the past 20 or 30 years of their life. They don't read Dr. Seuss. They probably don't even have an interest in reading. So that right there is extremely interesting. But nevertheless, it is an interesting conversation because people feel like this is censorship. You're canceling Dr. Seuss. And while I think that cancel culture can be harmful, but I'm gonna add this in here, my own opinion, cancel culture is predominantly harmful to people of color, BIPOC individuals. So let's make sure that we always keep that in mind, because there are some people who get canceled and they're white and they come back and do the same thing that they've always done. So anyway, back to what I was saying. I think when we talk about cancel culture, it is important to acknowledge the ways in which it is potentially harmful, but this is not an example of cancel culture. This is not an example of censorship. And I don't like that people are kind of running with that narrative that this is censorship. It's not censorship, because they are not saying that you should take all the books off the shelves, that you need to destroy the books. It is saying that we are no longer publishing these books because they are harmful to people, and we're not going to continue to make money off of these books that are harmful to communities. I don't know why people feel like it's necessary to maintain things that are harmful to people. Now, I do understand the conversation about trying to preserve the copies that are left of these books for research purposes, which is what a lot of libraries are doing. They're taking the books off of their shelves and they're putting them basically in special collections, meaning that if people want access to the book, they can have access to them. They are allowing them to do so for research research purposes. They're not allowed to take the copies out of the library systems. It is a way to make sure that there's a way to analyze and remember how far we've come in children's literature, but it's not a necessity to continue to produce the same materials over and over and over that are harmful. Now, we've had this conversation a lot within even the booktube community about no longer supporting and no longer advocating for certain authors or certain books, or just not promoting them anymore because of their harmful content. It is easy to tread that thin line between censorship and just not choosing to read a material any longer. If you've never noticed, I'm very mindful about not saying like, don't read this book, because as a librarian, it's all about accessibility. I can't stop someone from reading something. I can't tell someone not to read something because that's engaging in censorship, and that's not what we do. It's essentially against our code of ethics. However, in this situation, I do agree that it's okay to say we're not going to profit or make money off of these books anymore. I think it's okay to say we're not going to destroy these books. We're just going to move them into special collections, and we're going to maintain them, and we're going to hold on to them so people can look at them and view them for research purposes, or if they're still interested in viewing these copies. But it's no need to continue to circulate things, y'all, that are harmful. There are so many other books out there that are more important, that really push and align to the philosophy of children being able to access windows, mirrors, and sliding doors, like Dr. Bishop has said, instead of trying to fight and maintain content that's harmful for children. I don't want to ever put my child in a situation where she is instantaneously triggered by content. Is it an opportunity to teach and learn by looking at some of these materials and from a historical point of view? Absolutely. But is that something that I necessarily want to pull off the shelf and be like, here, honey, read this book that has harmful representation of X, Y, and Z characters? No, it's not necessary. It's not a cancellation. It's not censorship. And I'm not sure why people want to continue to run with this. It's not like the government has come in and said that we can no longer have these books. You can't produce these books. They need to be cleared off the shelves. This is his own personal estate. They're a private entity. They can make these decisions if they want to make these decisions. If they say they no longer want to make money off of these harmful materials, they technically are protecting his legacy by not producing these materials anymore. And the imagery in them is harmful. And it's been very difficult for me as a Black woman in a field that is highly dominated by white women to see people justify that these books are not, or attempt to justify, because it's not really a justification process, to see people attempt to justify that the images in these books are not that harmful. How can you say that when it's not your lived experience? There are caricatures of certain racial groups that are extremely problematic that I don't necessarily want my child exposed to. I think that there are other things out there that are good representations of who she is, good representations of other people, great books that are going to give her and help her build a sense of empathy for other people's experiences. These books don't do that. And I think that people have trouble creating a full narrative of humans. I say this a lot when I reference back to When They Called Us Enemy. That's a very good example where we see two sides of FDR. Okay, we know that FDR was responsible for a lot of the work that went into getting Americans off their feet during the Great Depression. But, you know, there's some questionable stuff about that when we talk about some communities that weren't necessarily reached, but that's a discussion for another day. Not gonna get into that. But we all know that that is a legacy that he has left behind. FDR was also responsible for sending thousands and thousands of Asian Americans, or Japanese Americans, excuse me, to internment camps. It's a full scope. It's a full picture. You can honor the legacy of someone and really recognize the work that it has done, or what the work that a person has done, and not leave out narratives about their whole entire life. I think this kind of goes back to the idea of us putting humans on pedestals, and Dr. Seuss is an author who is put on a pedestal, not to say that he hasn't done work in children's literature, that he hasn't done great work in children's literature. It's not to say that. but it's to say that you put humans on a pedestal. Humans have flaws, humans make mistakes, humans do some really, really stupid stuff and stuff that is harmful to other people. But when you continuously put people on a pedestal, you get so heartbroken, disappointed when you realize that they are not the person that you thought that they were. Dr. Seuss had issues. He had problems. He did some things that were not great at all. There's a rhyme that I'm not going to even say on camera associated with Dr. Seuss and how he treated his sick wife. There's a lot. But I think that when you start to glorify people, you want to ignore the things that they have done that's wrong. And I think that's kind of what's being associated with this other side of the argument, is that like it was a product of his time, it's a product of his history. Yeah, it's a product of his time, it's a product of his history, but we're in 2021. We're not in 1935 anymore. Like, we're talking over 70 years later. Let's let it go. It's time to let it go and move on. Stop letting this be a legacy that we pass on to generation after generation after generation. Why are we continuously passing on harmful legacies? I think it's important to acknowledge it, and you move forward and you grow. But you don't have to continue to pass on these legacies when there's other works out there that do such a better job of showing what we're supposed to be working towards as a country, as a community. So for me, it has been such a tricky situation. For me, it's been such a hard situation, a hard conversation to be a part of, especially when people are like, I don't understand why they decided not to publish his 6 works, especially since they're a product of their time. Are they great talking points? I think so. But why do we need to keep them? Why do we need to keep producing them and making money off of things that are harmful? I mean, this could be said of a lot of classics too. And I have my ways that I feel about some classics, that we continuously produce them. And it's like, there are other works at this point that we could be teaching kids. I think it's important to have conversations like this, especially when we're thinking about it in terms of like what we're exposing our kids to, and how for a lot of people of color, like, they don't want to have to continuously expose their kids to these harmful images, to continuously have to expose their kids to traumatic images when it's not necessary. And it makes them have to carry the emotional burden. And for me as a parent, I don't think that they should have to. It's just saying that this, in the long run, one day won't be a teachable moment for me and my child. Absolutely not. I'm not going to say that. But I think that we're pushing for something that doesn't necessarily need any backing anymore. It's tired. It's worn out. It just doesn't need to be a legacy that I pass on to my child. And that's coming from me personally. This whole thing is coming from me personally. It's just my thoughts as a parent and as a librarian trying to navigate the situation. Because, you know, it's kind of one of those situations too, like Laura Ingalls Wilder's books, the Little House on the Prairie books, are problematic. They're super problematic. And I think that a lot of parents are engaged in reading those books and having conversations with their kids because they're teachable moments. And I understand that, and I think that it's an opportunity to have those teachable moments. But I understand too where some parents are like, I just don't feel like doing that. I don't feel like giving my child that emotional burden to have to carry. And I'm kind of just in that place when it comes to how I feel about the Dr. Seuss books. Do we have Dr. Seuss books in this household? Absolutely. Would you ever have found those books in this household? Absolutely not. There's no way, because I just don't feel the need to have them. I don't want to censor anybody from them. I don't want to say that people can't read them. I just feel like it's just not for me to have because of the harmful content. And it's the same thing that I think we've had these discussions about Harry Potter. Like, I had Harry Potter as a kid. I loved Harry Potter. Harry Potter was a huge part of my childhood when I felt like I just needed something that I can connect to. It was a safe space for me. Is that the same legacy that I need to pass on to my child? Absolutely not. I think it was a time of my generation. It was a product of my generation. I will never deny what Harry Potter has done in terms of the legacy of young adult. It is part of the history of young adult. It has its place in history. But does that mean that I need to continuously pass along the legacy when we have books like Amari and the Night Brothers to pass on, where we have magical schools and vibes, but better written, better representation, better just everything in terms of what can be passed along to generations that come after me? No, I don't need to condition my child to love what I love because it was a part of my time. I just really just wanted to kind of give my perspective on this whole conversation because of the fact that it's been interesting just watching people talk about it. It's been interesting watching librarians talk about it because I think librarians are in a very, very interesting situation where like we don't believe in censorship, we believe in accessibility, and that's why a lot of libraries now are taking their books off the shelves and they're putting them into special collections because they want to preserve those materials and they want to make sure that if people do want them, they are accessible in a resourceful way. But at the same time, I think we also have a responsibility to acknowledge when, you know, like if we're doing story time, do we have to pick up a Dr. Seuss book for story time? We don't. Not when there's thousands of children's books published each year that are doing a better job at giving our children the opportunity for windows and mirrors and sliding glass doors when we're supposed to be creating a sense of empathy, when we're supposed to be creating an anti-racist environment. But those same people who are talking about the fact that this is censorship and that we're trying to cancel Dr. Seuss are the same people who don't believe in creating an anti-racist environment anyway. They don't believe in things like diversity training and all types of stuff like that. They feel like it makes us unpatriotic, but that's a discussion for another day. I said what I said. I think that if this country is truly about creating a world in which we have diversity and inclusion and equity, why do you continue to push for things that are going to divide and ostracize and be harmful to people? And I think it's important that the estate did acknowledge, and that was a key thing for me when I was following this story, and I wanted to take some time to really think about how I felt about the situation, because one of the key things for me, what was important, was them acknowledging that they no longer felt comfortable making money off of things that were harmful to a community, when this country spent all of last year in 2020 talking about the fact that we wanted to create an anti-racist society and we wanted to make sure that we stood with Black lives. We wanted to make sure that we were doing the right thing as it came to BIPOC individuals. How do you say something like that in 2020 and you come back in 2021 talking about it's real messed up for them to say that they no longer want to publish? They no longer want to publish because it's harmful, and they no longer want to make money off of the backs of individuals that have been harmed through these images. Some people in this country don't truly believe in building an anti-racist community and society. We really don't want to stand with Black lives. We really don't want to stand with BIPOC individuals overall, because to continue to want to push this narrative and to continue to allow an estate to make money off of this harmful material, you feel like that's okay. You feel like by them, nobody told them to do it. This is a private enterprise now. They said they no longer wanted to make money. But you're gonna get on the internet and say that, oh, we're going down a slippery slope by doing this. First of all, it's their coins to do with it as they please. Second of all, you're okay with somebody making money off of stereotypical images, caricatures that are harmful, but tell me again how Black Lives Matter. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy to me. And these are battles I think that we have in children's literature a lot of times. I think that we need to start having these conversations about what does it really mean to be censored? What does it really mean to deny someone accessibility to certain materials? What does it mean to really cancel someone? Because there are a lot of people talking about, oh, this is cancel culture at work. It's not cancel culture. You're not canceling Dr. Seuss. I promise you, you're not. First of all, he's a white man. You're not canceling him. His enterprise made the decision, and I'm so tired of seeing people saying you're canceling Dr. Seuss. You're canceling Dr. Seuss. The left is trying to cancel nobody is canceling him. Nobody is censoring anybody. There's no censorship or canceling involved in any of this. None of this deals with canceling or censorship. I need people to start learning definitions. We need to go back to the 2nd and 3rd grade and start copying definitions out of dictionaries, because some things are just not making any sense in terms of what people have been saying in the news and in articles and in Facebook groups. It's not making any sense. It's not sliding down a slippery slope. No one is saying you have to get rid of your books. No one is saying that you have to destroy your books. No one is saying that you can't read these books. What they're saying is we're not going to make money off of things that are harmful to marginalized communities. And I'm tired of white people feeling like because they feel like it's wrong, that screw the marginalized communities, let's continue to produce these materials and make money off of them. That's pretty much all I have to say. I just wanted to officially come on camera and kind of talk about it, because like I said, I don't really feel like BookTube is kind of like its own niche community, and sometimes there are things that affect the larger reading community at large, and we don't necessarily talk about it because it's just not a part of our environment per se. I think I want to start talking about some of these topics that affect the larger reading community, and not just necessarily to BookTube. I know I do that with my Kicking It with Bookish Rum videos, but there are things that do happen that are major, especially for like libraries and publishing, that we don't necessarily talk about much in BookTube. And I don't know if someone hasn't, I just haven't seen it. Like I said, I know Jess talked about it in her community video, but I just kind of wanted to come in and give my opinion of it after I took some time to really think about what I wanted to say, after I took some time to really like look at different opinions that I was seeing, because it was a lot going on. There was a lot, there was a lot of opinions being said, some that made sense to me, others that just did not make sense. And just, I mean, the fallacy in the arguments was just fascinating. But let me know in the comments below, like, how do you feel about the fact that his estate is no longer publishing his 6 books? Do you feel like it's cancel culture? Do you feel like it's censorship? Or do you feel like maybe it's time for us to move on and to start acknowledging works that are doing a better job at representing communities that this country so-called said that they want to lift up and listen to? Because some people ain't listening right now at all. But anyway, if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button. Interested in following me on social media, all my links will be down in the description box below. Interested in supporting this channel, my links will be down in the description box below. I got word that my links are not working. I don't know why they're not working, but I will make sure that they are working. So the link should be corrected and fixed in this video. All right, y'all, I hope you have a great day.